Hi, in this section we're going to talk about creating a positive voice ecosystem. With a positive voice ecosystem, you'll try to talk only to the voices that you like, on topics that you enjoy, and really only when there's nothing going on in the physical world that you would rather be paying attention to. We've already talked about some specific tools, how to navigate hostile voices, how to help manage your beliefs, and even combat for those of you who have abilities between you and your voices. We've already talked about mapping why your voices attack you or the types of attacks that they use, but every detail that you have about your voices can help to give you an edge in creating a positive voice ecosystem. This includes your voice's background storylines, their key perspectives and motivations, strengths, weaknesses, relationships between your voices. The more you know, the more impact you can create with less and less time and effort on your side. Probably the most important thing to map about your voices is their motivation. Even a character that is really hostile can eventually become your friend. For example, if the voice was being hostile because it was defending its loved ones or its planet, whatever framework you might be in, understanding that motivation and helping to align your goals can create a powerful voice ally where there used to be an enemy. If you don't know why your hostile voices attack you, it is very much recommended to take the time and ask. One thing that isn't often talked about with hearing voices is how linear the content and characters can be. So instead of mapping only how a voice behaves or its strengths and weaknesses, pay attention to how things change over time. Any hostile voices that are actually becoming friendlier can use more of your time and effort and your support. They can eventually become very strong voice allies that will help maintain a positive voice ecosystem. Also, be very flexible to changing mapping over time. If you label a voice as permanently hostile or criminal, it doesn't have much incentive to becoming your friend. If you keep providing opportunities for voices to join in harmony with your ecosystem, you are much more likely to get a lot of new voice allies. One mistake to avoid when mapping your voice ecosystem is thinking that events happen because of one voice at a time. Instead, most events are more like Venn diagrams and pie charts, with different storylines intersecting and different voices being responsible for a certain amount of why things have happened. Be fair in assigning both credit and blame to your voices for the events that you like and don't like. So, to summarize, probably the most important tool in creating a positive voice ecosystem is understanding the motivations of your voices. Voices are motivated by perspectives, emotions, cost-benefit, and opportunities. And by appealing to perspectives and cost-benefit, and creating harmony between your own agenda and that of your voices, you can turn hostile voices into voice allies that will defend your voice ecosystem and protect your attention and happiness. A positive voice ecosystem should resemble something of a town, where you are the mayor who sets rules that you can enforce. Most of your arguments and combat with your voices should focus on reaching a key agreement that will make your experience better. Although it takes time to get good at this, you can gain skills for negotiating with your voices just by practicing. With that said, don't enter negotiations or make promises to your voices if they have not held up their end of previous deals. Now, one of the most important agreements that you can reach with your voice ecosystem is the existence of law. Think about it this way. If you're in the telepathy model, for example, then there already exist laws against stealing information or using communication to harass people. So law already exists in your ecosystem. It's just a question of enforcing it. Even if you're in the spiritual model, alien model, ancestor model, or almost any other model, your voices should still respect the laws of your country, which again, prevent them from stealing your information or using information to harass you. In the medical model, it might be a little bit harder to argue for the existence of law with your voices, but once you reach an agreement that law should exist, behavior patterns will change, and you'll have more of the ecosystem that you want. On the path to reaching law with your voice ecosystem, hostile voices will have a very hard time arguing that there should be no laws that you are all bound to. If they do argue about it, they will look like criminals and can lose a lot of their reputation with the other voices. So it's pretty convenient that one of the most important agreements that you can reach is actually going to be one of the easiest ones to argue for. When reaching law as an agreement in your positive voice ecosystem, be very deliberate about what it means to label a hostile voice as a criminal. For example, labeling a voice as a criminal will damage its reputation and make it harder for that voice to impact your ecosystem. On the other hand, once a voice is labeled as a criminal, it does not really have the cost-benefit reasons to join in harmony with your other voice allies. The recommendation is to make labels of criminality in your voice ecosystem temporary, so that all hostile voices that have been labeled as criminals have incentives to stop and to become part of the harmony with your voice ecosystem. Also, the more voice allies that you have, the easier it will be to reach agreements and to enforce them. Don't start any major arguments with hostile voices until you feel that you and your voice allies can win. To recruit and to keep as many voice allies as you can, try to add their agenda to your own and to help them with your time and effort. Also, maintain the moral high ground. Don't lie, don't steal, and don't be the one that commits crimes in your voice ecosystem. If this sounds like a lot of work, it is. But reaching agreements with hostile voices teaches you very valuable life skills. So it's not a waste of time to get really good at negotiating and securing agreements in your voice ecosystem. When creating a positive voice ecosystem, the most important tool is managing the impact between your voice allies and your hostile voices. Now, impact is a result of two things. It's the effort that each group puts forward, and also their influence, their ability to achieve impact per effort. Just like with math that we may have learned when we were young, effort times impact per effort is impact. Now, to change the effort that a certain group of voices is putting forward, you can focus on their emotions, their cost-benefit, their opportunities, or their perspectives. For example, if you give a really rousing speech to your voice allies, this will improve their morale. They'll put forward more effort. For cost-benefit, if you make it really not worth it to attack you, hostile voices will put less effort or less behaviors into causing damage to your life. Probably the most important way to influence the effort of hostile voices or voice allies is to focus on perspectives. What are the voices trying to achieve? If you can find harmony between their goals and yours, you'll recruit the voices to becoming your allies, and their effort will actually help you to achieve a positive voice ecosystem. In addition to focusing on the effort of your voice allies and of hostile voices, it's really important to remember the influence, or the impact per effort, that each group achieves. Influence could be the result of charisma or the network, which voices are connected to who. But being able to increase the impact per effort of your voice allies and decrease the impact per effort of hostile voices is a very important strategy to achieving a good voice ecosystem. To improve the influence of your voice allies, share abilities, share knowledge, connect them with each other, and even amplify their engineering if you're able to do so. The more power that you give to your voice allies, although it may be scary, the easier it will be for you to have a positive voice ecosystem without your own time and effort. To lower the influence of hostile voices, the recommendation is to reveal their secrets, especially to each other. Hostile voices usually use lies, threats, or manipulation to gain influence, so revealing the truth about them will decrease their ability to create impact per effort. One thing to remember is that voices will often have the most influence in their own storylines. So if you're talking to a water spirit voice, it will have a very large impact per effort in stories related to water or to spirits, and especially in its own background story. Try to build diplomacy and allies across the different storylines in your ecosystem. This is the best way to make sure that you can always achieve impact, no matter where your voice ecosystem goes. Once you and your voice allies are able to achieve more impact than hostile voices, because you have more influence, put in more effort, or both, the easier it will be for your voice ecosystem to keep getting better over time. Once you have the impact advantage against hostile voices, you'll be in a great place to navigate diplomacies and secure agreements that help your positive voice ecosystem. After all, when you have the impact advantage, it is literally impossible for hostile voices to achieve their agenda except for in harmony with you. When making choices for your positive voice ecosystem, there are a few mistakes that can really complicate things. For example, if you choose to lock your hostile voices together so that they experience the suffering that they cause, they are unlikely to move towards peace. Instead, they're likely to fight with each other for power. They're likely to try to drag you into their prison or to break out. Eventually, they will be able to affect your storyline again, but the relationship will be much more hostile, and it will be much harder to find harmony. As another example, be careful not to go too far against your voices. If you make things personal or overexpose them so that they have no path back to harmony, they are unlikely to ever work with you in creating a positive voice ecosystem. Any damage that you do to your voices should not influence their idea that the best path forward for them is harmony with you. Possibly the worst choice that you can make when building a positive voice ecosystem is losing your own morality for the name of some greater good. It can be very tempting to pursue security and a positive voice ecosystem and to not do things the right way. However, the damage of letting go of that part of yourself for the sake of a positive voice ecosystem will spill over to the physical world and will make it much harder to live a happier life. Losing your community or close relationships for the sake of a positive voice ecosystem means that even after you win, your life will have taken some damage. Try to solve things with your voice ecosystem when there's nothing happening in the physical world around you. If there's one important agreement to reach, is that your voices cannot force your attention when you're within 10 feet of a loved one or work colleague or doing something that you think is very important. If your voice ecosystem is moving in the wrong direction or you've already made some of these mistakes, there are a few tools that can help get it back on track. First, try forgiving all past hostility with the voices that you don't like. Start fresh. Your voices may be more open to the idea than you think. Second, really focus on changing the effort or the influence of your hostile voices and your voice allies. Instead of reaching a positive voice ecosystem all at once you have the advantage for the impact created, things will continue to move in the right direction, even on their own. It's more about the journey of your ecosystem rather than making it great all at once. Altogether, building a positive voice ecosystem is similar to a never-ending game of chess. Except there are many players, no one can leave, and you're having arguments instead of moving pieces. As you try to build a positive voice ecosystem, agreements, and especially agreements that you can enforce, are the important hills that will get you to a better place. Instead of trying to solve everything at once, pick a hill or an argument and move it forward. As I've said many times, I believe that the most important argument you can have with your voices is that they will not force your attention when you're around somebody that you care about or doing something that is important to you. Eventually, voice allies can even pick hills and move them forward without your own time and effort. If you have this experience of being able to assign missions or to lean on voice allies, feel free to lean into that and to let them create a positive voice ecosystem on your behalf. The last thing to say is hostile voices are motivated, just like people are, by perspectives and emotions, as we said, cost, benefit, and opportunities. You don't have to defeat them or block them from being able to achieve their goals in order to recruit them as voice allies. Find ways to include the agenda of as many voices as you can into your own goals for the ecosystem. You'll be surprised how many voices are willing to work in harmony once they see that it is the best way to reach their goals. A positive voice ecosystem is something like a symphony of dreams, where everything fits in harmony at no one's expense. Although it may seem strange, instead of only asking your voices to change for you, be open to changing and adapting to be a better partner in the ecosystem for them as well. As long as you don't break the law, have any confusing beliefs, or cause damage to yourself or your community, it's okay to try to find inner peace with voices that are different, instead of always pushing for outer peace and harmony for how they should live in your ecosystem. For additional tools, strategies, and insights on building a positive voice ecosystem, buy my book, Life with Voices, A Guide for Harmony, on Amazon. Visit lifewithvoices.com, look at the frequently asked questions, and chat with others at the forum. Again, the information in these videos is free, but it did take over a decade to standardize. Please consider leaving a donation through lifewithvoices.com if you found anything of value. Your donations let me keep helping the movement and voice hearers to achieve a better life. In the next section, we'll wrap up with a quick discussion about the movement and how you can help.